guys. Okay, we are going to start chapter 2, or module 2. I'll keep calling it chapter. Sorry about that. So I want you in your math notebook. I want you to label this 2.1, and we are on page 29 if you are following along in your book as well. So I want you to pause the video for a second and put this into your math notebook. Okay? So, this is a little reminder of some of the things that maybe you've learned before, but that we need for this next chapter. So I want to make sure that we are really focusing on the vocabulary and setting you up to be successful for this chapter. So we're starting to look at multiplying whole numbers. So this is a very important standard. And I want to remind you that even though we have X's, we're not going to necessarily see X's in the future. So I want you to already be thinking like 8th graders, okay? So we don't really have X's. We really often just have a number in front of a parentheses. And when it's in front of the parentheses, we know that it is multiplication, okay? So one of the things that we can do is instead of doing the 4 plus 5 and making it 9 and then multiplying by 3, I'll say that again. Instead of doing 4 plus 5, because it's in the parentheses, and multiplying by 3, what you could do is something called distributive property. Okay? And that means, and you'll always see when I do it, I do the little loops. That means we're going to do 3 times 4. Okay? And then 3 times 5, and then add those together. Try it out. You get the same answer. Okay, so I know that we're like, why would we need that now? But I'm telling you, when the math gets harder, this is a great tool for so many things that you're going to do. So it feels kind of like, well, I don't really need that. I could have just done the 4 plus 5. Know that we're using it later. So I really want you to learn it and commit this one to memory, okay? So this, 6 times 6 equals 36. This is just an example of a product. Okay, remember product means multiplication. And know that we won't see those X's very soon. We'll see things like this, 6 times 6, a dot. And we'll see things like this with parentheses, 6 times 6. So I want you to add that to your chart here, okay? Down here, we are looking at multiples. Okay, so when we're looking at 9, 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times 3 is 27. 9 times 4, sorry, I swear I know my multiplication. And it keeps getting bigger, okay? Multiples. Make sure that you have that down. And then this is what we're going to kind of go over in the next day or two, and this is called factors. So it's really important you know the difference between multiples and factors. Multiples, you're actually multiplying, so they're actually getting bigger. Factors, you're technically dividing. So these are smaller numbers. These are numbers that go into this number. I can divide 9 by 1 and get 9. I could divide by 3. I could divide by 9. They're the numbers that evenly go into the number that we're talking about. So with 12, 1 goes into 12, 2 goes into 12, 3, 4, 6, 12 has a lot. Okay? So those are factors. All right? So hopefully you have those, and I really want you to know that vocabulary. It's really important. If you are still following along on page 29, and if you're not, pause the video and look at page 29. I want you to write under understanding the vocabulary the whole thing. I know I don't always make you do that, but in your math notebook, I want you to write numbers 1 and 2. Try to come up with the answer, and then start the video again after you have it written. Okay, hopefully you paused. Either way, so in number 1, it says, of all the whole numbers that divide evenly into 2 or more numbers, the one with the highest value is called the greatest common factor. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. Sometimes you may have heard of this called the GCF. GCF, greatest common factor. Ignore the craziness that's happening back here with my hair. It's okay. Ignore it. So, greatest common factor. So if I am looking at, let's say, 6 and 9. Okay, so the factors of 6, 1, 2 goes into 6, 3 goes into 6, and 6 goes into 6. 9, 1 goes into 9, 3 goes into 9, and 9 goes into 9. We are looking for the biggest number that goes into them both. Greatest common factor, also known as GCF. Okay. And then on number 2, of all the common products of two numbers, the one with the lowest value is called the, kind of self-explanatory, least common factor. Least, or least common multiple. You can say that too. So, 1 is typically a least common multiple. That makes sense. But there are going to be examples where they don't want you to count the 1 because 1 goes into literally everything. So you might need to take that a little step further. In this case, like our greatest and our least are probably going to be the same thing. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. And what I want you to also do is go to that same page, page 29, and I want you to make the 2-panel flip chart. And I'm just going to ask that you do it as you go through the next 2 lessons. So when you, in the 2-panel flip chart, the directions are right on page 29. You need to do it on a separate sheet of paper because it is something you're going to turn in to your teacher at some point, okay? So I expect that you're taking the notes as you're going. You can take some of the things I'm saying and put in your flip chart, but I want you to have that, okay? So thank you, and I'll see you soon.